Yo everybody, what's up? It's your boy PBM. I don't know why I said that, but I am going to be doing the classic patch note review. Sorry that it's taking me so long to get this out. It's about a week and a half late. Reason for that is I wanted to do this one a little bit different. So in my last patch note review in 4.12, I had mentioned that this would be a very long patch, and I didn't really want to just have a stale video of me talking for an hour without actually playing the changes. So I wanted to play with the changes a little bit, get a good feel, and now I'll tell you guys what all these changes actually mean, how you play the game now, and what actually matters, what's the substance of the changes. Also, I added music in the background so that if I take a pause, it's not just dead silence, and maybe it'll help. Maybe I'm going to lower this just a little bit. Probably should have messed with that before. Anyways, here we go. So first up, Godskins. You know the standard stuff. I'm not really going to talk about these that much. Emote Summer of Smite, basically, you do, like, quests or whatever, and you get free stuff out of it. Project Olympus, this is a texture pack beta. You can try it out if you want. From what I heard, it has mixed results. Obviously, it's a beta. It's going to have bugs and some things that you have to, or have to kind of get ironed out, so try that if you want. High resolution texture pack, all this stuff, resolution scaling. These are basically interface options, make the game run smoother. They should run smoother, maybe look nicer, all that good stuff. A lot of these help out console quite a bit too. 64-bit client. This is a pretty big one as well, I think. I don't really know. Anyways, I'm going to keep going. Prestige level, so basically, you've always been getting experience. You now will actually see that level with a cap of 160. For example, I started playing around Janus release, and I don't think I really started playing a lot until Season 2, and then I played a ton since then. I'm about level 149 right now. There's some people who are level 160, some pro players, stuff like that. So, you guys are going to most likely be above level 30, most of you, so then, you know, you get all this stuff. Doesn't really matter all that much, but anyways. Wisdom tab updates. This is actually really cool. If you're a new player and you want some more information, the game provides you with a bit more. The tutorials are cooler, all that stuff. Just gonna keep skimming through this. You get wins, you get chests out of it. Cool stuff there as well. Bug fixes. I don't think there's anything too big here. This is actually kind of a big deal. Sometimes you could see enemies, like Thoth, for example. He kind of hovers, right? And he has kind of a yellow glow sort of around his feet when he's walking, and you used to be able to see that through Fog of War, so supposedly that's not going to be fixed. I haven't really gotten to pay too much close attention to that, but that would obviously be a good fix if they did it, and I stopped rambling. Anyways, I think that's pretty much it. Players will not be able to queue or see all game mode queues when selecting the normal queue type. So basically they condense that list. You don't have to scroll. Also, another cool thing, I don't know if it was listed up here and I scrolled through it, you can multi-queue, obviously, so you can select multiple things at once. Okay, here's the good stuff, the stuff where I'll actually be able to give you some insight, and I've played all these changes, so I'll be able to tell you. So, general, now global audio to indicate when Gold Fury and Fire Giant have been defeated. This is pretty good. I don't think it affects the game too much for the most part. You should have some sort of idea what objectives people are going to, either through wards and seeing them walk on paths, or just noticing that people went to one side of the map and then they haven't come back in a while, or you got wiped and then they walked to either, you know, Gold Fury or Fire side. Not too big of a change. It does affect gameplay a little bit, obviously, if you're, like, sneaking a Gold Fury at level 5, and you, like, do a Gold Fury, people will be able to hear that, play the rest of the map accordingly. All lanes now meet at 30 seconds. This is a huge one. For those of you who watched my map video, you will know that one of the biggest things I kept harping on was that because mid lane and the duo and solo lane minions were meeting at different times, I think mid lane was somewhere in the mid-20s, whereas duo and solo would be somewhere around 33 seconds or so. Because of that, mid lane pressure was just king. You could get push in the middle lane, and then you'd be able to walk into the jungle faster than the other side lanes. That will now be even. So that's a huge change. This is the first time pretty much in the history of Smite that all three lanes have been pretty even in terms of when the minions meet, how much clear power you have in each lane. So it'll be really interesting to see how that develops. So far, it seems like you're still going to want to keep two people in mid lane no matter what at the start. And another thing to note about this is that because jungle buffs also spawn at 30, your ability to solo buffs before or to solo buffs at level 1 instead of going to the wave is now much worse, right? Because in the side lanes, the lane meets quicker than it used to. So now they will be able to clear and move to your buff faster. So if you were starting red on duo before, now you're losing a couple seconds that you had previously. I think that's pretty much it. If you're a solo lane or soloing blue, they have more time to walk to you, so on and so forth. First brute minion will no longer appear until the third minion wave. Not a huge deal, but it's pretty good to try to mitigate creep RNG. Sometimes if you're in duo lane, you would lose an extra creep because like their brute would like stay alive and it would kill, or vice versa. Like you get what I mean. Like you would have 5 creeps to gain experience from, and they would get 6 because your brute minion tanked everything, but their brute minion didn't, and then they would hit level 3 when you were level 2. There were a bunch of stuff like that. That should happen less, is basically the point. Jungle adjustments, decreased XP reward from 30 to 20, and health from 90 to 160. On the fire elementals, these are the small ones, the elder fire elementals seen here. Not too much, they just decrease the XP. These are worth a little bit less at the start of the game. To my knowledge, it still is treated about the same. I think you still hit level 2 off of it if you do a wave in solo and then you go get the small fire elementals. I think you still hit level 2. I'm not positive. I've been playing support mainly, so don't hold me to that. And then obviously you don't clear it as fast. Normally you would clear it in like 2 autos. Now it'll be 3. 3 or 4. Oracles decrease the XP reward from 85 to 65. This means that the main reward for Oracles, of course, is just getting the vision. You may see these prioritized slightly less at the start of the game. For those of you who watched DreamHack Valencia, you would notice that there were a couple times, I believe it was Rivals duo lane, would actually start the Oracle Harpies, and then they would go get a buff, rather than starting red to purple like most duo lanes were. Mini Cyclops increase health from 90 to 160. All the small creeps, so basically if you're a duo lane, because of the waves meaning, your ability to push or to do a buff while the enemy is pushing got decreased. Now, if you start in lane and then you lose clear, it's harder for the opposing duo lane to clear those mini Cyclopses, so it takes them longer to hit level 2, and they can't do that classic start that was done at the start of Season 4. Well, they can, it's just way worse, where you would push lane, go get all the minis, hit level 2, come back to lane, push again, and then go get buffs. So that's a little bit worse, a little bit harder to clear. Mid-Harpies increased XP reward from 55 to 58. This is actually a really big change. It's only 3 XP, but if your mid-jungle is 2v2ing their mid-jungle and mid, and you go do mid-Harpies, you will now hit level 2. Both players will hit level 2 from those mid-Harpies. Previously, that was not a thing. This is a huge change. This will change a lot of how you're playing the start of the game. Previously, it would be one side gets push, and then if they have enough push and they feel confident, they would go take your speed. If not, they would go take their own speed, clear it faster, and then go do like elementals or mid-harpies where you didn't have time to do that because they're clearing ahead of you. Now you can kind of do mid-harpies, and then you can follow whichever speed buff the other one goes to, if that makes sense. You'll have a level 2 versus a level 1. You may see people trade mid-harpies. There's a lot of options for people to go through. Gold Fury XP decreased 100 plus 10 per minute to 55 per minute, basically having the Gold Fury XP throughout most of the game. This is a good change in my opinion. It hurts Snowball a little bit. It doesn't reward teams for grouping up and kind of like forming in a Gold Fury at 5 minutes, because you're going to lose a lot of farm, because at that point it's more worth it to go do back harpies, to go do like elementals, go do mid harpies, all that other stuff, and do that efficiently. Tower adjustments, more huge changes. So you guys can read the numbers. I don't really need to tell you everything about this. Basically, or I'm going to tell you like how it actually feels in game rather than the numbers. So basically, the whole point of this, obviously, is to slow down the game. It's to stop Snowball, stop people from being able to get Tier 1 tower, and then maybe get a Tier 2 right after, because 2 people are dead for like 10 more seconds. It'll be a lot harder to kill towers, and also if teams get Phoenixes, you're going to see a lot more comeback potential, because if you do defend your base successfully on the second push, and you get that Phoenix to respawn, it will be worth a lot more. Kind of a weird side note, but it also means that you're punished a little bit less if you like trade a Phoenix for Fire Giant. As long as you get that Phoenix back up, that's a really good trade for you. Previously, that trade would be a little iffy because they could keep that Phoenix down kind of the entire game, because it had a lot less health, and it was at 40% instead of 70%. What this means for the people who watch me to learn support. Shogun's Kasari, Emperor's Armor. You want both of those items. Maybe not at... You want one of the two items for sure every game, in my opinion. And if you can get both and both make sense in the situation, that's great. Another thing you can look at is a level 12 Frenzy pickup. Basically anything to help your team get towers. If you can siege and take towers, that's a huge advantage. Siege changes, y'all know this is my shit. Siege map improvements, basically they took out purple buff, gave us speed buff, thank goodness. What else? Reduce the pre-game time from 90 to 60, so you're not just sitting around all the time. When to control Juggernaut's feed. You guys can read all this. If you're a Siege fan, read it. Siege is a little bit better. My favorite game mode. That's not Conquest, I guess. My favorite casual game mode. Other Clash stuff, Joust stuff. Who really cares? We're gonna just move on. New item, Hastened Fate. New items, Hastened Fatalis is removed. ADCs can't pick this up, thank God. Hastened Katana. Basically Hasten Fatalis, but for melee only. Instead of having 10 penetration, it will have 25 physical power. It's about 200 gold cheaper. Same passive, all that other good stuff. I don't know if old Fatalis had 30% attack speed. I think it did, so maybe a little bit less attack speed. This is really good on melee assassins. It helps them out a lot. If they did need this, the obvious character is Kali, right? They didn't want to completely remove Fatalis, because then gods like her are a lot worse, so solid item there. Hastened Ring, this is the magical equivalent. Something you'll notice here is that it's kind of trash. The reason it's trash, it only gives you the haste buff, which is what they're now renaming the Fatalis buff of not having movement attack penalty. So the haste buff will only be 4 seconds on a 30-second ICD. What this means is if you are Freya and you activate your 2-1 combo, you will get that for about 2/3 of the duration of your actual steroid, and then your whole entire next steroid rotation will not have the effect at all, and then on the third one you'll get it back. So every other 2-1 combo will not have Fatalis. What this basically means is you probably don't buy it much at all, if you do buy it at all. 7% movement speed, kind of a weird number. You'll see they added movement speed to a lot of items as we continue. Hunter's Bow, that's just a T2, gonna skip over. Atlantis Bow, this is the Hunter Fatalis thing, 30 power, 20% attack speed, 2300 gold. Hitting basic attacks, increase your movement speed by 7% per stack. I actually think this is a pretty trash item. People have tried it out a little bit. When you have this fully stacked, and keep in mind you have to hit 4 auto attacks in a row basically to keep it stacked, it doesn't feel the same like Fatalis did at all, and it's kind of awkward. In general, I don't really think it's that good of an item. It seems like people aren't picking up that much. Toxic Blade, another item that is most likely trash. 2200 gold, 100 health, 10 movement speed, 20% attack speed, 10 pen. This could be good in some situations. On the surface, I feel like it's not a strong item because I don't think there are many viable auto attack assassins or warriors that would rather have this. For example, if you're something like Bellona, Osiris, Erlang, you don't really care about this 10 penetration or this 20% attack speed as much. You would rather have more defensive stats. If you're auto attack trading, you'd rather have like a Nemean, maybe even a Witchblade over this, or even Iqbal probably does it a little bit better, and it's cheaper. Just seems like an awkward item. It gives a few stats, but none of them seem that impactful. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Enemies hit by your basic attack gain a stack of 20% reduced healing. Kind of just the old Witchblade aura, now put onto Toxic Blade, and they're split up. Shamans Ring, interesting item. Basically, the way this works is as you hit people, your passive will ramp up. You have to deal 100 damage to a god at 50 stacks. It evolves. The evolve makes it so that if you hit an enemy, you deal 10% increased damage with abilities to that single enemy, if that makes sense. And it only gets used once. So the best way I could explain this, you're playing Scylla. You get your thing fully stacked, your Shaman's Ring fully stacked. You hit them with your root. It puts the little targeter on them. You hit your 2 on them. That'll take the 10% bonus damage, and then it's reset. Seems like an okay item. It's fairly cheap. It has decent power. Not a lot of other stats. Movement speed is interesting. I'm not sure if it'll be that good. It's just basically good on combo mages. And then obviously it says here the evolve item will be a new feature with stuff like Rangda's Mask, and you'll see that as we go on. I'm trying to keep this short. My whole goal is to keep it shorter. I don't really think I'm doing it well. Aegis, basically no change. Blink Rune, reduced cooldown. Reduced cooldown on the normal effect. This is really good for support. Obviously, I'm going to try to have this with a support mindset. 100 seconds basically means if you're blink get ulting, you only have to wait 10 seconds between the cooldown of your blink and your ult. Previously it was 30 seconds, quite a big difference. Blink upgrade keeps the same cooldown. After blinking, you take 10% reduced damage for 2 seconds. In a lot of situations, this actually isn't that impactful. The number one that I can think of where it is if you're playing Ares, you blink ult, normally people will just beat your ass during that. Now you take 10% reduced damage, have a higher chance of being healthy after you pull them, or you get their beads or whatever. So, interesting upgrade relic. Bracer of Undoing, the cooldown reduction is taken off of it, the healing is still there, and then the cooldown on the tier, or not the tier 3, the upgraded version is 120 up from 100, and retains the ability to subtract 3 seconds. Also, I would like to note that Bracer is actually pretty overrated in my opinion, and I think if junglers are building brawlers and stuff like that, I actually don't think it's OP at all. I think these are good changes. Not having the early game cooldown reset doesn't allow people to get away with playing super aggro with this like they would with like a Ravna, I guess would be a pretty good example. Cursed Ankh upgrade, decreased healing reduction from 65 to 50, cooldown 100 to 120. New effect, this is the upgrade only by the way. Enemies afflicted by Cursed Ankh have their mana cost increased by 20%, and the cooldowns of abilities fired afflicted increased by 2 seconds. It doesn't really come into play that much right now because not many healers are meta. You're not seeing stuff like Chang'e or Hell, all that good stuff, not even stuff like Guan Yu or Sylvanas, so you're not seeing much of these Cursed Ankh going around anyways. If you do see those healers, and this is a good item, it really punishes people for using their abilities into it. Obviously, their heal is going to be a much longer cooldown, so they can't sustain as much, and then they're going to go very quickly, which all of those characters have mana problems. Heavenly Wings, if you're a support player, you are picking this up in like 70% of your games, if not more. You should probably always have a Heavenly Wings on your team no matter what. Reason why this item was pretty much auto pickup with Shell last season because of the slow immunity and the movement speed. It is on a lower cooldown at 140 seconds than it was in Season 3, and it also has the upgraded Hastened Fatalis effect, or I guess now Haste effect, where you don't have movement penalty when auto-attacking. So basically, you should have this item. It stops a ton of slows, it stops a ton of CC, it can be used to disengage, it can be used to engage, and it helps your hunter and your assassin and warrior, whoever, gas pedal people. This item is insane. You should have it pretty much every game, or just about every game. Horrific Emblem upgrade, increase the cooldown to match what is the normal cooldown, I think. Enemies afflicted by Horrific Emblem deal 20% less damage to all targets. Something to keep in mind with the slow, it is actually a shorter cooldown than the Heavenly Wings, so that's still good. If you use it perfectly off cooldown, you will get a good Horrific play at least once. Enemies afflicted by Horrific Emblem deal 20% less damage to all targets. Kind of an interesting passive. I think if a lot of auto attackers come out in the meta, so if you ever run like Hunter mid and ADC Hunter, or you know, a Hunter in the long lane as well, you might see this item be used. The damage reduction feels a little bit odd. Maybe you can get it on a burst mage before a team fight. Problem with Horrific Emblem is Heavenly is just a stronger item in my opinion, and it counters Horrific. The 10-second window isn't much to capitalize on, and the range of Horrific Emblem is such that it's hard if you're a support to get it onto their ADC and their mage reliably, because their range of their abilities is longer than your Horrific Emblem range. So, it seems like a really big change. In practice, I don't think it's that big of a change. Horrific Emblem doesn't seem that good. But it's still decent. Magic Shell. A lot of people are crying OP on this one. I'm trying to show the upgrade as well. Showing everything. I think this is it. So, a lot of people are crying. This item is really OP. Instead of having the prots and the percent damage mitigation that it used to have, it will now give you a shield up to, what is that? Crap, why can't I think? 15 times 20 is 350. So 450, right? So 450 health, and it lasts for 3 seconds. So people are crying OP, in my opinion, because you're seeing the actual effect of the shell. So before, you would just hit less hard, and it wouldn't seem like that big of a deal. Now that you see the actual health bar, the shield on the health bar, I think visually you notice how much of an impact Shell is making, whereas if a support had a really sick Shell in a team fight and you didn't pay attention to it, sometimes you wouldn't even know. So I think for visual cues, it's a lot better for the game to be like this. It is pretty strong in general if you build multiple throughout your team. So if you have like 2 or 3 shells, you can have 900 or more health for your team. But I think that there's a lot of other good relic options out there. Blink is still good, Heavenly is good, Horrific can be okay, Cursed can be okay. Even if Shell is the go-to, I don't think it's too crazy. The main thing to keep in mind here is that if you're building penetration, specifically percent penetration, you would previously get, or actually not percent, specifically flat penetration versus the old shell, it would actually hurt you a lot because the additional prots that it gave it made it so that your pen wasn't doing that much unless you had like a very early Titan's Bane, Executioner, that type of stuff, Obsidian Shard. Now that you're not getting procs out of shell, you're going to chew through the shield really, really quickly, especially if you have pen throughout your build. So the damage you're doing to carries, I don't think matters that much, given you can normally chew through 400 health of a carry late game in like 1 or 2 auto attacks, so it's not that big of a deal, in my opinion. The upgrade is pretty sick, stopping 2 basic attacks, so you get 2 block stacks, kind of like an Athena or a Bellona have. This is really good at countering some gods. Major one would be countering Circuit. So if Circuit goes on your carry, she ults, use Shell, which is going to absorb the true damage of the ult, and then you also get the block stack, so the Circuit can't proc their passive. So not only can Circuit not get her passive effect, but her ult just basically got eaten, so you hard counter Circuit, GG, fuck that character. Meditation Cloak upgrade applies a buff to yourself and allies. Hit for 5 seconds. It causes mana cost to be decreased by 30% and have cooldowns of abilities fired when buffed decreased by 1 second. Kind of the opposite of the Phantom Veil, or not the Phantom Veil, I'm just reading that because right there. Kind of the opposite of the Cursed Ankh effect. Healers would pick up Meditation and have a lot of mana for it and obviously heal a little bit more. Anti-healing would stop that. So now you see people pick up Meditation, you build anti-heal, but now they get this additional effect where they have cooldowns reduced. It's a pretty cool effect. It could be neat on some characters, like a Guan Yu support maybe, where you're spamming your abilities a lot. I want to test this item more. I think for defensive purposes, it is worse than Shell and worse than Heavenly, but it still does give you pretty good utility, and the mana can be very useful. Phantom Veil, remove the 40% crowd control and knock up immunity for allies. Phantom Veil, blah blah blah. Increase the cooldown, and Phantom Veil now take, or enemy allies affected. Why can't I speak? Take 15% reduced damage for 5 seconds. Not really a big deal at all. It kind of has the old shell effect, but it doesn't have the procs that it used to have. The flat procs actually were a pretty big deal. If you're playing against Ymir, this item is very good. If you're playing against, you know, Thor or Kabrakan, probably still good. Otherwise, you don't really get it at all, in my opinion. I think Shell and Heavenly and Meditation are better defensive options most of the time. Shield of Thorns upgrade. Enemies can lifesteal from the... It's weird that they have this worded like that, but you only lifesteal for 50% of your total lifesteal, Hunter versus Soul Laner. I don't think this comes into a play pretty much at all, because Hunters aren't really going lifesteal. Also, what the hell is this? I'm skipping that. I don't like that song. Anyways, enemies can lifesteal from the user for 50%. Don't think it matters. Hunters don't build lifesteal. Soul Laners have other good relic options. Shell would be one of them. Not a big deal. Sundering Spear, change the damage dealt from 30 true damage to 15% of the target's current health. Remove debuff that causes the target to take increased damage. Basically, the way this works is base Sunder will take away 15% of your health. It cannot kill you because it's percent based. And so, like, you know, if you're at 10 health, 15% of 10 doesn't do 10. So you're not going to die. And then it reduces the debuff, so you can't kill tankier targets as easy with normal Sunder. Then the upgrade will get that damage back, and you'll get the debuff from 15 to 20%. So Sunder can still be strong in the later portion of the game once you've upgraded it. Till then, kind of weak. The tier 1 is very, very weak in my opinion. Teleport Glyph no longer allows users to TP to wards. Big change for Soul Laners. I think you still probably go TP because it's really good, but not being able to go to ward means not as many Gold Fury plays where you loop behind people. Very nice change. And then if you upgrade it, cooldown still 200 seconds, but you get the ability to teleport to wards. So Soul Laners don't have as much impact across the map. and you may see solo laners go for something like a blink shell setup, like for example the classic Deathwalker Geb or the Geb Walker. You may see him go stuff like blink and shell and then get Swiftwing to walk back to lane and not go TP. The stuff strats like that are way more viable. Bless Daddy Geb Walker. Rangda's Mask, each time you stack or gain an assist, you get a stack, or 2 stacks for a kill. Now 10 stacks, and you get movement speed, CDR, and pen. It's a little bit better than it used to be in a competitive conquest setting. I don't really think it's worth picking up, but I may be proven wrong if you can snowball the game very, very hard. And then if you are a Clash main, you buy this every single game. Frostbound Hammer, range basic attacks don't proc it basically, or it only applies to 20%, so actually it does proc it. I think they were talking that maybe it wouldn't, but it's 20%. Rage basically got nerfed because the icon isn't as good as the old one. Lono's Mask, item icon now evolves when reaching maximum stacks. This doesn't matter at all. This is actually bugged currently. I think they're fixing it, but pretty much doesn't matter. Bumbas decrease the health from defeating a jungle monster from 15 to 10%. This was an attempt to make side laners, aka solos and ADCs, pick up Bumbas less because they would have less sustain. I don't think that matters at all. It will still be picked up in multiple roles pretty much every single game. Bancroft's cost increased by 100, reduced base lifesteal from 20 to 15. Pretty good nerf, still a good item if you're playing something like Soul, you should still pick it up. Dynasty Plate Home, people were complaining about this because people haven't been picking it up that much. The item was still overstated, even though it's fallen out of favor for more burst options. So kind of tuned down, not really worth picking up as much. If they have 4 physical and you're a mage and you're worried about getting dove, you still could probably pick it up and it'll be a good play. Celestial Legion Helm, bad item, don't pick it up, I'm not even going to read it. Vampiric Shroud, you now get 10 physical prot and it removes the lifesteal. Now instead of last hitting an enemy minion giving you health, when you hit them with an ability, it will restore health and mana once per ability, once per target, or I should have said that in the reverse order. This may help mages come back to the soul lane. I don't know if that'll actually happen, but that seems to be the general focus with how they are balancing this item. You may see guardians in the soul lane pick this up as well, or maybe some mages in the mid lane pick it up. I can't think of too many, but if you have kind of like utility mages, maybe like a Hebo, for example, isn't a utility mage, but if he wants a little more procs in the early game, and he's spamming his abilities anyways, he's able to regen a lot, and he's able to box in the wave. You could find some stuff like that, maybe like a Chunga or something would pick it up. There's a lot of good options for mages as far as starter items go. I'm not quite sure how Vamp Shroud, or how good Vamp Shroud is yet. Ancient Blade, Adventurer's Blade, Curse Blade. This basically just to make the tree flow because, like I said, Toxic Blade and Witch Blade are now 2 different items instead of having the passive on 1. Decreased health from 200 to 100, already huge bad change. Attack speed from 15% to 20%. 100 health is way more important than 5%, especially when you're building an old warrior, so already a nerf to the item. 15% lifesteal, magical or physical. The people buying this are normally warriors, don't really give a damn about that. If you're a guardian, you're not going to buy it at all because you don't care about this or that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Enemies have their attack speed reduced by 20%. You're better off buying mid-guardian, I'm pretty sure, almost every time, or buying Nemean. It seems like just a really bad item. I do not recommend buying it. I've seen people try it out in the hunter role. In my opinion, it's bad, but who really knows. Wingblade, remove 10% attack speed. Doesn't really affect guardians at all. Warriors, makes them do a little bit less damage when they pick it up. Same with auto attack assassins. No big deal. Relic Dagger, really interesting item. This has been changed a lot, and every time it gets changed, I say it has potential. This time, I really mean it, because Relic's having 30% or 30-second reduced cooldown instead of the 20% I believe it was before. Puts your blink down to a 70% cooldown, for example. It allows you to make a lot of plays. It could be very good on characters like Ymir who want to blink engage a lot. Maybe even Athena to a lesser extent because obviously she has dash. Stuff like Geb, Sylvanas, all that stuff. There's a few blink assassins I can think of. Maybe like a Wheelix could buy blink sometimes, or you could buy blink on like Merc or whoever. You can make plays more often. Remove the 10% attack speed, so it hurts it for assassins a lot. For guardians, having the health, really good attack speed, we didn't give a damn. Relic's having 30-second reduced cooldown, could be very good. So, yeah. Demonic Grip, increased magical power from 60 to 15, reduced the attack speed, added movement speed, Good item for Freya, I guess, not really too many other characters. Shamans Ring, basically a new item. Every time you deal damage with an ability, you gain a stack of 20 power, up to a maximum of 3 stacks. Kind of odd, I don't think the uptime on these stacks are very good at all. You're better off buying an item like a Spear of Desolation. It doesn't have the attack speed, so it's movement speed and power. I don't know why you would want 70 power and 10% movement speed over 80 power, CDR, flat pen, and the passive that Desolation has for a cheaper cost. AKA, bad item, don't buy it. Emerald Ring, blah blah, Druid Stone, just adjusting stats. Void Stone, big change here. 50 gold cheaper, 20 magical power less. As far as supports are concerned, not too big of a deal. 150 health. The 150 health is worth way more than the 20 power, so a big buff for the support role. I had mentioned Relic Dagger earlier. You would notice that a lot of people were going Jade Emperor's Crown. I'll update my build guide in a bit, by the way, guys, in about a month when we're closer to SPL and I have a better idea. But anyways, you probably build Jade Emperor's Crown, Void Stone, Relic Dagger. That's a solid build. Ton of prots, ton of health. You get good passives all the way around. If you have multiple Guardians on your team, you should have this item every single time, in my opinion. And if you're a support, you should consider picking it up. Speaking of things supports should consider picking up, I'm going to show both these up at the same time if I can. Genji's and Oni Hunter's Garb. They basically increase the MP5 for both of them. Neither of these matter. The 150 health and 100 health, super big deal for both of them. Passive reduction for Genji's, also another big deal. This is the second time in the last few patches Genji's been buffed. This item is insane ability-based warriors, and a lot of Guardians can benefit from this a ton. Oni Hunter's Garb already had a pretty cool passive that got buffed a lot. So, situationally, if you're like a Ymir and you're blink freezing and you can proc this consistently, really good budget or really good cheap magical defense item. And then Genji's Guard is super insane. This tree with Oni Hunter's Garb, Genji's, and Shogun's is now way better than Heartward, Pestilence, and Bulwark tree, so you should look to getting these if you are playing a warrior or a guardian. Alquang passive change. I actually have heard a lot of people say they think this passive is worse than the old one, but I'm not completely sure. Basically rewards him for executing people. It's a more fun passive to use, in my opinion. Alquang is still bad in the meta for Conquest, so not really a big deal. Baka, yeah, it's Baka. Lower cooldown on Zot, but he's still a bad character. Don't really play him that much. I don't see him really being that viable. Maybe you can find a cheese strat, I'm not sure. Bologna, reduce base power from 39 to 36, increase the cooldown on bludgeons. Bludgeon doesn't really matter that much. Osiris is still better than her. Erlang is pretty good into her, it seems. Maybe Guardians come back. Some stuff like Sobek can have decent matchups versus Bologna. She's pretty much the same character still. Chiron now applies a mark of masterful shot to all targets hit. This is his one, so he can now do a 1-2 combo. Helps us clear a fuck ton. Pretty decent hunter now. That's pretty much it. Better clear, better damage. Kronos Time Lord, new passive. He gets a ton of power. So every 2 minutes, he gets, what is it, 3 magical power, 25 times, or it stacks up to 25 times. So at 50 minutes, you are going to get 75 magical power. So Kronos will absolutely stomp you if the game goes long. And then, Accelerate, they just changed it a little bit. Isis changed her passive from the MP5 and HP5 to 10% CDR upon reaching 10 kills or assists, kind of like an Urchin thing. You get 10% passive CDR. Interesting change. I don't think it changes Isis's viability too much. Probably makes her feel a lot better to play, though. Kuzon Bow. This god was complete shit. Probably the worst god in the game. Don't let any of these changes fool you. He is still complete shit and one of the worst gods in the game. The slow by Nini Kappa is like 20% for a second. It's like very minimal slow. And the cooldown reduced on Sumo Slam is pretty good as you're ranking it up. And then the knock-up adjustment is pretty good. If he's good at all, it'll be solo lane if you can get him ahead, and we have a Guardian solo meta. I'm not a solo laner, so I'm going to view it like a support and say he's complete trash, don't play him, he's a bad god. Naja Windfire Wheels. You used to have, not really a bug, but an interaction where Naja would ult you. It would get this like little animation where it grabs you. If you would beads, it wouldn't stop the ult from taking you up in the air. And then it would allow you, once you are being taken up in the air, you could still beads on your way up, so you would waste your beads. So now what's going to happen is you have 0.25 more seconds to bead, so your reaction time gets helped a little bit, and you can avoid the ability, and then, or it'll match the animation more accurately, so a lot of times it would seem like you beads and you really didn't fast enough, so they basically changed that, and now, once you're in the air, you can't bead, so you have no chance to waste it. Pretty big nerf to Naja, but the character still has really good pressure and is good in general. Nemesis, increase scaling on her dash, increase the base damage on her 2, increase the scaling on her 2, reduce the slow from 30 to 50 to 30% flat, and increase the protection shred. So basically, she's less of an alt bot and more of a you do more ability damage, and then your alt can help you single out one target that you want to deal ability damage to, and hopefully 100 to 0 them. Nema's still a pretty decent character. I think overall in competitive this maybe makes her worse, but if you're fighting without your alt a lot, then she's probably still fine. Nuwa, clay soldiers, you basically can like mark them or something, so the minion AI is a little bit better, and you can consistently stun who you want. Nuwa in general still doesn't seem like that great of a god, but she could come back. Raijin was the worst mage in the game. He has been nerfed. He lost the bonus damage on his passive, which actually did a ton of damage, and basically all these other changes just make him do less damage, and his clear could get body blocked previously. Did they change that? I think they did change that. Actually, it doesn't look like they changed that. Okay, never mind. Yeah, Raijin's just trash. Pretty much all the way around. His projectile speed was increased in the alt, which is nice, and you can stay in your alt longer if you want, which means you'll probably die, I guess. And it reduced the damage of the CC. Overall, I'm pretty sure Raijin's just not good, so whatever. Sobek increased passive duration. That's actually a pretty good change. Sobek was already doing pretty well. Now, if you use all of your abilities and you alt, you'll have the protection throughout the entire time of your alt, where previously you were losing those, so nice change. Susanoo, no more aids movement speed passive. Now it'll be bonus damage, and it only applies to one ability, and you have to stack up the... Like, every time you hit an enemy god, he gains a stack, so you have to stack up your, like, ability combo, and then you apply a little bit of bonus damage, 25 plus 60% of your power. He'll 100 to 0 you a little bit easier, but he'll probably die for it because he doesn't have as much movement speed. And then, to combo this, they decrease the base damage on Storm Kata, so you can kind of look at it as he does about the same damage, maybe a little bit more once the scaling starts to come into play, but in the early game, he does less damage, and he's less mobile, so good nerf to Susanoo. Euler gets some mana cost reduction, big change for him. Reduce the cooldown on his 2, so you can use that a little bit more, and then you gain more power at rank 1, so you're incentivized to put a point in it earlier. And that is it. I did keep the video under an hour with this style, so hopefully you guys got all the information you wanted. Still a super long video at about just under 40 minutes. But anyways, TLDR, you basically build Guardians aggressively, Voidstone, Emperor's Armor, maybe Relic Dagger. Genji's Guard is good, Emperor's Armor is good, Shogun's is good. The magical tree is pretty much way better than the physical one at this point. Warrior supports get a little bit worse because they can't build Voidstone and build Jade Emperor's Crown, which are probably the 2 best aura items in the game right now in terms of just numbers currently. So take that as you will. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any other questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments section. I will get back to them ASAP. We'll have a new patch note, like a normal patch note on time review for 4.14 a little bit later on in this week. So, anyways, if there's anything you guys need in detail, just hit me up in the comments, and I'll talk to you later. Peace out.